All right, let's see what we got here. Test. There it is. Mute. Perfect. Stream looks good, crystal clear. Wait for a couple people to start jumping in. Just came from watching DNI. Really good. Really good stream tonight. Come on in. Awesome. We'll be getting started here in just a couple minutes. Appreciate you guys stopping in tonight. Put this stream in. I know a little bit going on the late side of the live stream, although we get people from all over the world that log in. Had the chance to watch Brad, then moved on to DNI, and a lot of great conversations tonight. Man, oh man, absolutely outstanding. Ranger, what's going on? How you doing? Sorry, I got my other laptop here. I'm gonna pull up the chat on this one in a second. Just monitoring the stream, the signal for a minute, and we'll start. We'll get this kicked off here. Let's see what we got. All right, got my notes. before we do that, all right, let me make a quick transition here so we can see the chat stream. There we go. Perfect. All right, pull up my notes. Make sure we stay on topic. Great. It's amazing. There we go. We got everything popping up here. I'm gonna just reposition this laptop here. It's got a few things in front of me. So let me position this so it's just a little bit easier to see. So there we go. Yo, what's up? How's it going? I'll do my best to stay on topic. Don't want to. All right. So anyhow, it's crazy. Obviously, you guys have all been monitoring and seeing the sea of green in this space, which has been absolutely outstanding. It's crazy. I go away for 4 days, completely disconnected, and I come back to this slew of news and, seeing all these things happening, and it was just, it was really unexpected. Hang on one second. What's going on? I'm frozen. Can you guys still, if you can still hear me, give me a thumbs up. I don't know how this froze here. See, the stream looks good. It might be on, should be able to, everything else seems live. Oh, you can hear me? All right, that's all right. I'll continue here, even if it's frozen. Let me see what I can do here with the video capture. Oh, you know what? The video I did that again. Let me deactivate. It was actually on my side here. Reactivate. There we go. That should be, there we go. That's good again. All right, should kick in 1 second. I actually, I moved my other laptop and I hit the plug. So, as I was saying, disconnected for 4 days, come back, crazy amounts of news. And what's so amazing about this space is that as things happen, it seems like every day is a week and every week is a month. And you go away for 4 days and it's like I missed a month's worth of news, if maybe even more. And I come back to the sea of green and everything's going amazing. And I feel like I'm so far behind. I spent a little bit of time trying to catch up with all the great things happening. And to me, it's awesome, and now, we're seeing just one chat after the next. Everybody's got this revitalization. Everyone's pumped up. But the big question I think that everybody's asking is whether or not this is really a sign of the bull market. And a number of articles, YouTubers, whatever, have really pointed out that if we look now year over year, we do see a bump up, not just in the overall market, But if you look at XRP directly, if we did a year-over-year analysis, and we're seeing that, you know, we're a little bit ahead of the game. So there's great things happening. We see a positive trend. As long as you see positive trends, and something I've always said, you know, when you look at your investment, it's always best to look at your investment year over year, you know, because we're in this for the long term. If we're in this for the short term, then we'd be trading, and the traders are looking at technical analysis, but trying to, you know, trade on speculative investments obviously is a risky proposition. So that's really, you know, really the theme. So what was great is that CAK, he's shared a bunch of stuff with me, and I looked into this, and it really allowed me to start looking at something else and dig a little bit deeper into the Federal Reserve. But one of the things that he had sent over, and I haven't really found a lot of other information other than what was posted on Reddit. But the comment here was that the Federal Reserve, the Fedwire, went down for a period of time today, or a couple days ago. I think it was a couple days ago. Let me pull it up as I was trying to sort through everything. So anyhow, so there was a couple comments. Let me see when the article, this was from yesterday. Today's the 3rd, right? Yeah, this was from yesterday. So there was one person had posted something on Reddit that they're working in a financial environment, and their Fedwire went down, the whole system went down. They weren't able to transfer funds at all, and it really impacted what they were doing for a short period of time. Now, the question there that came up was that as you dig into it, and I dug into the Reddit conversation, there was an article that was posted on Bitcoinist, and from Bitcoinist, then I went out, you know, started to do some searching to say, hey, what exactly was going on? You know, what was the Fedwire actually down? Was there an issue? What happened? With the initial post that came up, and this was actually a couple days ago. It was 2 days ago. It was posted. So they said today the United States Federal Reserve experienced an unexpected issue and went completely down. No incoming or outgoing wires went through in the entire country. It's still unresolved, and yet not one single news outlet seems to be reporting on this. So obviously, wherever they were having an issue sending funds. Now, somebody said it's probably an April Fool's joke, but this person kept coming back and saying that there was an issue. But then they actually said directly after they posted that, everything came back online. So it was just a period of minutes that it went down. Some other people tried to comment, and someone else had posted that they noticed the same thing. The problem is there's zero news. And I think one of the biggest issues, you know, when you get into something like that, whether it was factual or not factual, I don't know. You know, we know what was posted on Reddit. We know what the article that they wrote about it. The question is whether or not it actually did happen. And if it was a matter of minutes, you know, maybe there's a glitch in the system, you know, maybe not. I don't know. But what it actually enlightened me to and opened my eyes to was the Federal Reserve's Fedwire. And we talk a lot about Swift, and we compare Swift with RippleNet, but we've never really dug into and analyzed Fedwire. And Fedwire has over 9,000 partners that they work with, mostly central banks. Mostly financial institutions and banks. But the Fedwire is actually operated by 12 Federal Reserve banks in the U.S. So there's a whole background to Fedwire. So I started putting something together specific on a comparison of Fedwire and RippleNet, and we'll get into that on another video stream. So CAK, you think they're trying a new system? Yeah, I mean that's definitely possible that they're, you know, implementing something, they, you know, shutting something down. You know, it's hard to say. I tried digging through to find more information on it, and other than what was on Reddit and on Bitcoinist, it was hard to find additional info. Farshad, what's going on? Let me make sure I say hello to everyone coming in. So we've got, what do we have here? Sarasota, Repub, what's going on? Good to see you on. Adis, Farshad, XRP the Standard, good to see you on. Bobby, what's going on, everybody? I'm glad you guys taking the time this evening to join on. If you don't know, this is Jeff with the HODL Report, and this is Evening Crypto. So we're going on a little bit late for the live stream. Looking forward to the conversation today because there is a lot of great things to talk about. So now, with all the good news, there's always, it seems like there always has to be a little bit of FUD. And so first, on Twitter, there's actually a tweet by Cryptopolis_X or Cryptopolis. And it was interesting because I've brought up Jim Cramer before, and in relation to investing and his advice always being not timely and not necessarily the place you want to take financial advice from. But anyhow, so Jim Cramer in this tweet from Cryptopolis, it says, Jim Cramer on CNBC this morning called people who invest in digital assets cryptomaniacs. They're here today, gone tomorrow. Just FYI, Jim, they came in 2008 and are still here and strong. Let's just call this a good sign for the crypto market. And then he said, at CNBC, hashtag clueless. So I just find it interesting. You know, they just keep attacking, thinking that they know better. You've got now years and years so of expertise within the digital asset space, the crypto space, the blockchain space, and then you have individuals like a Jim Cramer, or you have the Jamie Dimons of the world, or the list goes on, that obviously have done very well for themselves in the financial markets, but their knowledge and their experience in this space is extremely limited. You know, and yet here they are, you know, trying to make statements and really portray themselves as though, you know, they know, and really they don't, you know, and I think that is really all telling. Let's see here. First time on your show, on your live show, Farshad, man. Thanks for joining in. Glad you made it, Dennis. Yeah. That's to Kramer. Thanks for jumping in. The future of money. Glad you guys are all logging in here. So let's see. CAK. You believe they said they were working with partners to do transactions offline. If they're testing their system, it's really interesting. As I started reading about the Fedwire, actually looking forward to digging in a little bit and doing a little bit of a comparison with RippleNet. I think that'll be interesting. What's going on, Guy from Australia? Glad you're tuning in. Doug Huff, we are the deplorables. So we have what Jim Cramer said, and then we also have another FUD article on CNBC, and CNBC and Forbes seem to love to post the FUD, and so here's what we got here. This is crazy, you know, and I think just when you're seeing everything, you know, pumping, everything's doing great, but overall, again, if we look year over year, the digital asset space has grown. Someone posted earlier that it's growing by like $80 billion or something like that year over year, but we're seeing a consistent movement. So it's not a negative movement. Obviously, we had this major FOMO boom before. Yo, Farshad, thanks for the tip. Love it. Glad you joined on for the first time in the live stream as well. So check this out. So this was on CNBC, and again, like I said, CNBC and Forbes, for whatever reason, you know, they just love trying to pump the FUD. So here, this one, the title of it, "Don't Buy Bitcoin, Warren's Wealth Manager. We're likely going to see cryptocurrencies collapse. This was earlier today on CNBC. And then they get into it. Obviously, they always track back to December of 2017. They never go prior to. So the news for them starts when they started paying attention. And since they started paying attention when things hit 20,000, obviously the reference point is completely incorrect. So they start their article off, the price of Bitcoin surged more than 15% Tuesday and briefly crossed the 5,000 mark since mid-November. It's still well below the all-time high hit in December 2017 of near 20,000. So obviously if you phrase things that way, obviously it looks like you've seen a major pullback in the digital asset market from 20,000 down to 5,000. But if we put it into perspective and we go a few months prior to December, you'll see the state of the digital asset market. You'll see the state of where Bitcoin had been as it was ramping up over a period of time. And so really, if we go year over year and then we go back to even if we go back to 2 years, so we go back to 2017, so and we jump backwards, you'll see a consistent trend. Obviously there was a big spike, there was a bit of pullback, but the speculative spike up in that December timeframe, the news was definitely feeding the frenzy on it as well. So when we see CNBC and others that are logging in and showing people how to buy XRP, and everybody's new to it, and everybody's fired up because they're seeing a boom, and they want to make themselves appear like they were knowledgeable and in the game when they weren't. So now this is them just being upset that they didn't think of it first or get into the space first. So let me go back here, acknowledge some people that jumped in here. Bobby, glad you joined in. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Zebio, hey from Florida. Good to see you on. Mac 31400. Glad that you're on as well. So yeah, this is a good point. This little jump is nice, but the lower rise of XRP and target pullback was concerning, or the larger pullback. It's interesting. I was just looking at a little while ago. XRP, it maxed out around 35. It's pulled back to around 34 cents. It's still higher than where we were a couple days ago. So I think that's a positive. And really, the way I've always seen it when it comes to XRP, right now the market's all tied together. But we saw some fuel being added to the market from Bitcoin Cash of all places, and Litecoin. Litecoin has jumped up significantly. But we're seeing the whole market kind of moving in this upward trend. Obviously, Bitcoin spiked up, and they had all these reasons as to why Bitcoin was spiking up. Part of it was that we saw 3 different exchanges. What was it, about $100 million purchased in Bitcoin on 3 different exchanges. So there was definitely some movement there, and there's all these theories as to who did it, why they did it, etc. The point being, though, is that the market is still somewhat tied together. When it comes to XRP, though, I believe that XRP is still tied to utility. And so we're going to see the trend upwards because the market's moving up. But when we see a big spike in XRP, XRP will, when we see the full utility of XRP through XRapid as it's used with within the RippleNet solution, or as we see XRP being utilized with other solutions, that's where we're going to start seeing actual jumps and bigger jumps within XRP. Right now, again, we're seeing this slight trend up. It's definitely a positive. Everything takes time, though. I would be more concerned if we saw a major jump up, just like in a stock market or whatever. When you see a major jump up, you're expecting to see a major fall or a pullback, because people are going to sell. And if there's a jump up, there's a reason why it spiked up, and the reason isn't going to be a consistent reasons. So it's not going to hold the price typically. And so that's where I would be really concerned. So I like seeing the incremental increase. Again, this is long term. So we're going to, if we see this incrementally keep going up, which eventually the bull market is going to, or the bear market will go behind us, and we'll be moving into the bull market. And that's really what our anticipation is. That's what we're all waiting on. So you can kind of take that for what it is. Obviously everyone has to make their own decisions when you're investing in this space. But as we're looking at it at face value, that's my opinion on it anyways. Let's see here. Farshad, wish he had more Litecoin. It's crazy. I mean, from way back in the beginning, I'm still holding Litecoin. And then in the major pullback, I did add a little bit more Litecoin just to balance it out. Again, these are Bitcoin and Litecoin. I mean, it's all very speculative. With the real realized utility of those digital assets is going to be more in a store of value. And they're really tied together. They've been around. Obviously, Bitcoin's been around the longest. It'll probably continue to be around for a long time. The speculation is that Bitcoin is going to go the highest. Somehow, Litecoin is always tied to the direction that Bitcoin's going in. So, why not diversify a little bit? You don't want to put all your eggs in that basket, but why not diversify a little bit? Doesn't hurt, So, let's see. What did I miss here? Let me go back up. Sorry, let's see here. Back up to Guy, do the opposite of what they say. I like that, talking about those on CNBC and Forbes and all those other guys. Occupy Binance. I like that. Dennis. Hey, Myron, what's going on? Dennis Perry. Probably more Bitcoin than most of us. Jim Cramer. There's a good chance of that, at this point. But we're seeing there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, and later in the chat tonight we're going to talk a little bit about Coinbase and what happened, with the big delay with XRP and their big announcement the other day as well. Anthony King, what's going on? Financial news reporter. Let's see. What do you think of Bitcoin price action? Oppenheimer Funds official. First of all, I'm not an expert or fan of Bitcoin. That's it. But that's the typical response that we expect, because they don't know, they don't understand, and they want to believe or pretend that they understand, and they're not going to tell us that they don't understand. So, so their immediate response is, no, that's a fraud, it's a fake. But most of it's because they're just upset that they didn't think about it first, that they weren't the first movers into the space. So that's obviously a major issue for them. Let's see here. Whoop, I just jumped down. XRP is 49 cents. No way. That's right now. Which exchange is that on? Let me look. Let me do a real time. Let me look at the coin market cap. I want to see what XRP is at right now. Still sitting at, there we go, 34 cents over here. But is that 49 cent US or what is that? 49 cents. Let's see. SEC news. We'll get into that here in a little bit. XRP will moon. Farshad. Yep. XRP future. What's going on? Let's see here. In the last bull run, Litecoin mooned first, followed by XRP a few weeks later. That's exactly right. That's what happened. And so we saw a lot of positive trends. Well, we saw what we thought was a come out of the bear market before everything started coming up a little bit, went back down, comes back up, goes back down. Bitstamp yep at 34 cents. So that's what I would anticipate. Let's see here. Oh, Farshad, if you're already logged off, hey, good night. If you're not logged off yet, I'm glad you made it on. Mac, that's a great, and you brought that up again with Cramer. He caused you to sell a great stock, and that's exactly why I believe, typically once information hits the mainstream media, it's already too late. The Lyft IPO, perfect example. If you saw the pump up on the Lyft IPO, hang on a second. Manipulating Bitcoin price. Hang on a second. Let me show this one. Some of the comments get blocked, so I have to go in and accept them and read them first. So you know, but what was I saying here? Hang on a second. Oh, yeah. So with the stock, so typically, you know, I think it's a lot of it's fabricated. But if you look at what just happened with Lyft, you know, all the pump and the hype that went before they did the IPO on Lyft, and then all of a sudden, you know, their big statements was that it was going to come out at, I don't know, $71, and then they increased it. And now if you look up Lyft, that'd be interesting. I didn't really care about what was happening with it, but let's look at Lyft, because this is a good representation of the hype that they create. Because in an IPO environment, right now it's at 70. So what are they showing? It's up $1. It was up, down, up, down. Let me see. Let's see if it actually IPO'd at $70. I think it IPO'd at 70 possibly. Based on this, oh, that's 1 day. Let me look at the 5 day. No, it IPO'd at $85. It looks like it opened in on Friday. But what's crazy about it is that by the time it hits Main Street and you're able to buy in, it's already too late, because the big players have already bought in and pumped up the price. So they get a different price than what the retail investor gets. So all of a sudden now they launch it, and you get all the hype because they built up the hype of what the valuation of that IPO is, and everybody buys in, but that's their anticipation because they already bought in low. Now they're hyping it up, so by the time it does go live, it's pumped up at a high price point. They're dumping their shares, and then you see the pullback, because then what happened immediately afterwards, they started speculating that, oh, you know, then now, you know, the news is coming out that, you know, that the Lyft IPO, it's actually cooling down, and we're going to see a retrace, and we're going to see it drop down, and now it's hovering around $70. So it pumped up on day one up to about 85, and now it's pulled back about $15. So that's like the typical expectation, and we see the same thing in this space too. So it's just insane, you know, about, you know, just across the board. So let's see what we got here. Sorry, Bobby, again, you know, thanks for posting stuff up on Twitter. Diesel Hound, welcome. Let's see here. Was that Trexia XRP? Thanks for posting that up there. But Wall Street is manipulating Bitcoin price to buy it cheap. It'd be interesting to watch that video. I haven't checked it out, but you know, any information would be great. Was this a bull trap? XRP or XR Pilot? That's a great point too. No idea. You know, so that's the thing that everybody has to really be wary of. You know, and again, if we're in this for the long term, if you're trying to buy and sell a small spike and think that you're going to benefit from the market, you're going to be gravely mistaken. And I think that's where you're going to get burned. You know, but that's really the anticipation. You know, you look at it and you say, okay, I'm gonna buy now. It goes up a little bit and you want to buy and think it's going to go up again, and you want to turn around and sell or whatever. But even if it does pull back, so what? You know, if you bought in now at 35 cents and XRP at 35 cents, what difference is it going to make if you're anticipating holding it for the next year? But again, you know, overall, when you're investing in this speculative space, and I've said it, you know, multiple times over, you know, and I always typically end my videos with this, you know, but when you're investing in something like this, you have to put money in that you don't care about. You know, you have to pretend like that money doesn't exist. So that could be $100, it could be $1,000, it could be $10,000, whatever your budget is. You know, you have to do it based on what's good for you. But if you can afford to put in $10,000 and that's doesn't matter to you, and you can put it away like it didn't exist, and it won't impact you if you lost it, you know, that's the mindset that we have to get into, in my opinion. You know, so again, whether you're investing $50 or $100 or $1,000 or more, that mindset always has to be present. If you're worried about your day-to-day and you're taking money that you need to live and you're investing it in there, then take a smaller percentage of it. You know, if you can invest even, 10%, obviously, not everybody's in a position with disposable income, but even small amounts, it helps, when you're saving money. Now, if you look at this, and this is interesting because I talked about this on a previous video, individuals that spend money on lottery tickets, there's people out there that can barely afford to buy food, yet they'll go and spend $20 or $100 on lottery tickets, once a week. That money is, equivalent to a much higher percentage of what their actual income is. But let's say they're spending 10% of their weekly income on lottery tickets. Imagine if they took that 10% and they put it in a jar. They put it in the bank. You take that 10%, you put it in digital assets. That money's going to keep growing, so put it into something that's of value. Don't just waste your money. If you're going to buy lottery tickets, that's wasted money. That's an added tax by the government on individuals. And so they're much better off. And Rob Cash had brought this up also, and I was posting some stuff back and forth with him. But that's so critical, that you do your own financial planning. But it doesn't matter how much money you make at that point, because there's people that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars and they're still broke. There's people that are making millions of dollars and they're still broke because they don't understand the basics of money management. And then there's people that are, making small amounts of money, and then when they retire, they're well off. And that's because they understood that they can sacrifice the wasted things that don't really matter at the end of the day, like wasting money on lottery tickets, wasting money on buying coffee, $5 coffee at Starbucks. Take that same $5 that you spend every day and put it into a digital asset. And that's the kind of money where it doesn't matter, right? Because you would have wasted it anyways. And then when we're in a speculative market, it doesn't really matter because we're looking long term. We're not worried about, is this market going to pull back again and go back to 30 cents or 25 cents? That's the natural tendency. 5 years from now, if we're still hovering at 30 cents, maybe that's a different story. I don't know, but we'll have to worry about that in 5 years. But for right now, the anticipation and the trend, if we look back a year, 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, the trend is upward. It's not up and down like that and downtrending, it's uptrending. So I think that's the positive, and that's what is getting all the excitement in this space. The other point to note on that is that all these major companies wouldn't be building out the technology to support this space if there wasn't going to be money in it in the future. So I think those are all, important points to make. Stuart H, man, hey, thanks for being on and commenting. Lambie, good to see you on. Let's see here. Let me just look back up here. Ralph Cramden, good to see you on. It'll take a little while. Wave to the camera. Someone's up.
Make sure to subscribe.
Hey, there you are. So make sure you listen to that advice. All right, so let me bump out of here. All right, let me go back here. Let's see. Some people don't hold; they trade. Yeah, that's true. Trading to me in this space is dangerous. Day trading in the stock market can be dangerous unless you know exactly what you're doing, and you're going to expect losses, and you just have to balance them out. It's going to be law of averages. If you have a plan going into it and you're trading stock, swing trading stock, whatever your theory or strategy might be, but you're sticking to your strategy, but you know your buy-ins and you know your buyouts, and you know your comfort zone. So yeah, they can definitely trade. Let's see here. Lambie, see, just what we were just talking about. People just need to hold and not worry about the day-to-day prices. I'll tell you what, until today, I hadn't been opening up CoinMarketCap to see price movements, you know. But now, you know, a number of times throughout the day, I've been wondering, you know, exactly what's going on because of the hype and the excitement that's going on in the space right now. But that's natural, right? We all want to see what's happening. But when it's in a negative space and it's pulling back, and again, if our expectation is 5 years to hold on to something, then what do we need to look at it today for, you know? But if we're trading, if we're planning on selling, then it still doesn't really matter unless we have a plan out our sell points, you know. And if our sell point, let's say you bought at 30 cents and, you know, you based on your technical analysis, which I don't think you can even have true technical analysis on a speculative space, you know, there's still FOMO and, you know, other things that are contributing to the bump ups. And if you look at like now, you know, based on other people's theories, if it really was, you know, the $100 million buy-in on Bitcoin that spurred the market, how could you even anticipate something like that on the technical analysis in advance? You know, you'd have to, it would be a day-to-day thing, you know, maybe hour to hour even. But that's what the traders are monitoring. So if you're not monitoring that type of trade pattern, then it would be extremely difficult to understand those buy-ins. Let's see here. Stuart H. They're once forcing price up and down, traders and those going short and long. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. Let's see, Lambie, I can bet that no one ever looks at their 401k balance on a weekly basis, much less on a day-to-day. That's a great point. I 100% agree with that statement. How many people monitor their 401ks? And I can tell you, you know, when you do start monitoring your 401k, you're not going to do it daily. You're not going to do it weekly, but you should be monitoring where your investments are in the 401k. I think that's vital. But so many people put money into 401ks and never look at it at all. And it's still critical. You know, we still need to understand the movement of our investments. You know, if we don't really understand it, then we need to learn a little bit. We need to do a little bit of research. We all, you know, have that tendency to just blindly put money into a 401k and hope for the best, you know, long term. But even now, you know, when we look at the trends of the stock market, you know, we have to make sure that we're positioning ourselves, even again in the 401ks, like you said, you know, we need to position ourselves properly. Let's see here. Well, whoa. I just jumped down a little bit on the chats. Hang on a second. I got to go back up. Not keeping up. There's still a lot of dislike of XRP from the crypto community. I believe this is what held it back. That could be part of it. There's still, I think it's really coming from the you know, Bitcoin only crowd. You know, I think they're still a little bitter that you have altcoins that have come to the scene and it's not all about Bitcoin, which, you know, that's kind of a short-sighted you know, theory and thought process to do it that way. Sorry, I'm looking over at my other laptop to look up the chat here. It's not how much you make, it's how much you save. That's a good point, Anthony. You know what? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great statements in here. Diesel, you know, some of us are gonna make it, some not. You know, that's just how it is. You know, people are going to do what they're gonna do, and even on a, you know, you're gonna do what's good for you personally, and you have to do what's good where your comfort zone is. So even when you're trading, if you decide to trade in stocks, and I've done that before, and it's nerve-wracking. You know, because you're constantly, but as soon as I understood and I learned a strategy and it became numbers, you take the emotions out, and it still was a learning curve, you know, to overcome emotion, the emotional buy and the emotional sell, and really rely on the technicals and your calculations if you have the right strategy. But again, even then, there's no guarantee. You know, so there's always that chance of losing. But long-term holding, if you look at the stock market as a whole, it's always been on an upwards trend as well. You know, so I think we can learn a lot from that. I like that, Dennis. I don't buy Lotto anymore. I invest in XRP. That's great. Ceci agreed. I appreciate that. That's amazing. Bobby concurring with Dennis. Man, you know what? To me, they and we talked about this. You know, I talked about this with Rob Cash about the Lotto and the Lotto. You know, the Lotto is a tax, and it's a tax on individuals that typically, you know, can't afford it. But that's all it is, you know, because I know the majority of people aren't gonna win. It's horrible. You know, it really is, you know, just preying on specific parts of our community. You know, similar to casinos, they also prey on specific parts of our community because they're selling them a dream, a hope, and a prayer that's not realistic. And they flash all these shiny things in front of people, and it's just such a it's really a negative. It doesn't have, you know, it's not something that that is beneficial to the community at large. But then here we are in the digital asset space, and here people for the first time are seeing an opportunity to invest. They're seeing an opportunity to change their mindset. So how many people have gotten into investing for the first time, and they're investing for the first time within the digital asset space? To me, that's super impressive, because we have people from everywhere in the world, from every socioeconomic class, really, and it's amazing, from every culture group. It's unbelievable. And so when we talk about the coming together of people for the betterment of people, the digital asset space is really reflective of that mindset. You know, and so it's the very first time also that individuals have really been able to invest smaller amounts of money. So you can buy a fractional share of a Bitcoin. You don't have to have a whole Bitcoin. You can buy fractional shares of XRP. I've talked about this before too. Prior to this, if you try to invest in the stock market, you can't buy a fractional share of Amazon or Google or Facebook or Netflix or, you know, any of the stocks that have boomed over the past, you know, 10, 15 years. Now it's too late. You know, who has the money to invest in a $1,600 stock, you know, to take advantage of a Google or an Amazon? It's too late. You can't do it. But within the digital asset space, you can buy fractional shares or fractional parts of the digital asset. It's not really a share, but you can. And this, to me, that's so impressive. You know, that it allows people, again, to change their position in life, to put money aside. But you still need to diversify, because at the end of the day, you know, there's no magic elixir that's going to make somebody wealthy. You know. And so you have to do things in a smart way. You have to do things to diversify. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, again, you know, it's really about that mindset. Do what's right for you individually. And it, you know, you got to look out for yourself. I think that's really important. Yes, it is. I'm going back up. Sorry. Just getting ready for bed when he popped in. Sorry, I didn't see all these the chats here. Myron. Let's see here. Sorry, let's see. Diane, my sister doesn't do crypto, but she compares it to Lotto. You know what? That eventually she'll learn. She'll come around and she'll realize, you know, that. Again, to me, the Lotto is a place you're just sinking your money, and you know you're going to lose, like going to the casino, and you might as well put the money on roulette and just throw it out there, you know, or you know, throw the dice, whatever, you know, and craps or whatever. You're just kind of just taking a risk and a gamble. At least here in the digital asset space, if you're not looking, there's still that tendency, you know, people want to look for the next Bitcoin, so they're going to drill all the way down looking for the super cheap crypto, and maybe, you know, there's absolutely no use case, you know, for it. But I think most people now are really, you know, hyper focused on the top 10, top 20. There's still a lot of good companies that are coming up, and you got to track it and really see and understand the dynamics. But those that are in the top 10, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, obviously XRP is up there, because we see the trend right now of everything that's happening. And this really kind of brings me into and I'm going to skip down a little bit here from, you know, some of the things that I wanted to talk about today. But, you know, one of the big ones, and I want to kind of wrap up here at 11 o'clock as well, but let me find it. So I'm going to skip way down. So the big news here to me that was announced was Coinbase. So Coinbase announcing that they're getting into cross-border payments and using XRP to do it. You know, so that to me was very impressive, very important overall. And so you have the XRP and the USD. Let me open. Wait, I already have this open. Hang on a second. Where'd it go? Let's see. Coinbase. The soft launch on Coinbase. Here we go. And so I think this is interesting too because of timing. So here we have. Let's see. This was an update. This is from Monday. Let's see. It had been available. Coinbase added XRP to its service on February 28th. Primarily designed as an educational resource for customers to learn about the benefits of using crypto for cross-border payments. Let me see. So, right. So now they're offering basically free payment services for Coinbase users to transfer currency. So the exchange is using two currencies for the service, XRP and USDC. And so this and the USDC, let's see, was launched last fall by Circle. USDC was also the first stable coin to be listed on Coinbase. XRP was added in February. So here's what I think is interesting. So, you know, Coinbase, you know, for the past year, everybody wanted Coinbase to list XRP, and they held off, and we really anticipated, at least I anticipated, I'm sure others anticipated as well, that Coinbase was not listing XRP primarily because of the issues over whether or not XRP is a security and lack of regulatory clarity over that. I don't know if that was the case or not, but what's interesting are all the coincidences that kind of led up to. We have XRP's added, then XLM was added, then you see the tie-up with XLM and IBM and the expansion with some of the things they're working on. But now we see with Coinbase adding a payment rail like this to be able to allow people to move money. That to me, and utilizing XRP, that doesn't happen overnight. That didn't happen since February. This is something that they had to have planned for, they had to have designed for, they had to have put the full architecture and the full implementation process together. It didn't happen in 2 months or 3 months. I got to believe that this is, you know, must have been like a 6 month, you know, to a year, you know, rollout plan to put something like that together. You know, I'm not programmer, you know, I can't tell you, but it just seems to me that something on this level, they wouldn't just, you know, roll out overnight like that. So this, obviously, you're not going to launch XRP and then wait, you know, 6 months later to roll something like this out. You know, to me, they had to coincide. They had to come within a close proximity of one another. And so I think Coinbase really, you know, planned that one out. Let me go back up here. Sorry. Look at some of the chat. Try to comment. It goes by so quick when I'm kind of focused on talking. Diane, yeah, it has been super exciting the past few days. Sarasota Repub lift was a joke. Way overpriced. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely insane. Same thing happened with Twitter, where they hyped it up, then it crashed way down. And so that was actually a good one after it crashed down. XRP definitely kicks Bitcoin's arse. Legendary going on. Let's see here. Guy, persistence beats resistance. Hold your XRP. CE, good to see you. Glad you logged in. I did look into VeChain, and I do need to. I'm going to bring that up on one of the next chats. I started looking into VeChain. I thought it was really interesting. So let's see here. Yeah, everything that we just talked about on Lotto. Let's see. Do we know where the Token Taxonomy Act is? Okay, so this is a good one. I've been keeping in really close contact to figure that out. Actually, we're rolling out a video. I made a video with a couple other of the YouTubers, and we actually sent it, and we're going to start sending this video around to all the congressional representatives that are on the Financial Services Committee and throughout Congress to really try to push them to support the Token Taxonomy Act. There has been some good progress. Warren Davidson put out a tweet a couple days ago acknowledging the progress. There was some expectation. So what they were trying to do is get a 1-for-1, one Dem for every one Republican that's supporting it. I believe that we should see an introduction of the Token Taxonomy Act within a week or so. So I know I thought it was coming before, but now based on the information that I've been getting in communication with the office there, it does seem that we're going to see an introduction pretty soon. And then there's going to be some, they're going to precede this with a lot of big rollouts. So definitely stay tuned for the introduction of the Token Taxonomy Act to Congress. Now, even though it does, and this is really, I've reached out, I've mentioned this, this is where it gets so critical from a grassroots level that we understand the process. So once the Token Taxonomy Act, or any bill, but when the Token Taxonomy Act gets introduced to Congress, it's going to go to the Financial Services Committee. Once it's at Financial Services Committee, and this has been part of their holdup. Again, they want 1-for-1, one Dem for every Republican, and they want the Dems on the Financial Services Committee to co-sponsor this bill. So that seems like it's going to happen here. But once they get that, it goes to Financial Services Committee. They have to approve it and pass it on to Congress. Congress then votes on it. It then goes to Senate. So from a grassroots perspective, are we having an impact? Are we reaching out to the individual offices? If you can continue pushing, contacting your congressional reps, contact their offices in your local area, contact the offices in DC, whatever you can do, send emails, pick up the phone and call them, ask them where they stand on the Token Taxonomy Act. It was introduced in the 115th Congress back in December. Obviously, now we're in the 116th, so it needs to be reintroduced. More and more of the representatives, staff, and team members are reaching out to Warren Davidson's office to get more feedback and info on the Token Taxonomy Act. The momentum is building. It's critical at this point. Now it's almost like a do or die moment because it has to get supported. It has to get passed. This is such an important part of what's happening in the digital asset economy as a whole. And so we need, from a grassroots level, to do our part. Now, Stephen Chip, he should be making this video live soon so that we can start tweeting it out. So hopefully within the next day or so, you guys will start seeing the tweet with this video. If you see that tweet, forward it on, use it, retweet it, do whatever you guys can do with it. It'll be awesome. But definitely look out for that coming very soon. But retweet it, send it to any of your local Congress people. If you can tweet it to them, if you can email it to them, whatever you can do. I think Twitter would be very effective because now it's open. in the public, and we're going to see multiple tweets going to them, requesting the same thing. And so we should start seeing some feedback. The other thing is we want to also acknowledge that Warren Davidson out of Ohio, he's the primary sponsor. The original co-sponsor of that bill was Darren Soto out of Orlando. And now they're trying to get a number of other key Democrats within the Financial Services Committee to join on. So hopefully that gives you guys some hope on where and info on where the Token Taxonomy Act is. But like I said, stay tuned. We should start seeing something coming very soon. Let me look through here. Anthony King, 90% of people in a casino shouldn't be there. That's right. Yep. All right. So, Mac, I did not talk about what was going on with the SEC. I'm going to have to sideline that. That's a whole long conversation. I talked about a lot of other things that I didn't really anticipate talking about tonight. But like I said, I want to try to wrap up here in about 5 minutes. I'll do another live stream on Saturday. So when on the live stream Saturday morning, and we can dig into we can talk about the SEC guidelines, and I want to talk a little bit also about Fedwire in relation to RippleNet. So there's a lot of great things that we can talk about on Saturday. Let's see. XRP, the standard, be the 1%, invest and diversify. 90% crypto, 10% precious metals. Remember, this is a brand new asset class that hasn't been created in many years. That's exactly right. Yep. And Diane, this is a new beginning. It's definitely a new beginning. There's so much stuff going on in this space. Lambie, Coinbase is coming around and quickly realizing that they need XRP and not the other way around. I believe that. Yeah, there's so much. I mean, it's really, really impressive here. Dan, what's going on? Glad to see you on. Crusaders fan. I don't know if I acknowledged you here before, but Dan, I'm glad that you're on here. Been in touch with your local congressman. I'm glad. That's awesome. If everyone can do that, that'd be phenomenal. Yeah, it's just I can't say enough. If you go into the description here, let me make sure it's on there. Yeah, if you go into the description below, I put a link in there for your rep. Go ahead and click on that. That's the house.gov/representatives. It allows you to just put in your zip code, and you can find your local congressperson. I also have a spreadsheet that I broke down into different tabs. One I found with all the different every elected congressional rep. Their local address in DC, their phone number, started filling out some Twitter. I put that on the Financial Services Committee as well. But if you can reach out, you can find all this information. Even if you just type in, Financial Services Committee, you'll find a list of everyone that's on it. And what some of the previous videos I had posted, a list of every representative as well. So, man, I'm really glad that you guys joined me tonight on the stream. A lot of great engagement, a lot of great feedback. I really appreciate it. I kind of talked about things that I hadn't anticipated, so which is great. That's always a pleasure. And coming from Digital Nomad Investor stream and Brad's before that, I think a few of you guys were on there as well. I think that's awesome. It's really a lot of info. And Farshad, I know you're not on now, but thanks for the $4.99 that you sent over. That's awesome. With that, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Again, look forward to seeing you guys on the next live stream. Try to do them twice a week, Wednesday evenings, and then Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know that could be super early for some of you, but if you can join Saturday morning, that'll be awesome. Until then, I look forward to seeing you. Keep on hodling your crypto. Again, this is Jeff with the HODL Report.